From an idea to a 3D printed model in under 10 minutes. I'm going to show you the exact workflow that I use to turn this idea into a finished mask. Also, if you want the 3MF file for this mask, you can grab it for free in our Skool community. Now let's get into it. So the workflow can be broken down into 4 main steps, and it starts with an idea. So my idea was the 2 masks that I really like and morph them into something. How do we take these 2 ideas and blend them together? To generate an image, there's 2 AI steps here. 1 is writing the prompts and 2 is generating the image. I wanted to mention that AI is better at using AI than you are. So don't try and write perfect prompts. Let AI write the prompts for you. This is the prompt that I wrote. Now, I've left it in there with spelling mistakes and it's not perfect, and that's fine, because the next step is getting AI to turn my prompts into a better prompt. And the main points in the prompts that we need to include are the 4 different images, which are called orthographic views. Now, in my prompt, I didn't use this exact term, orthographic. I didn't know it off the top of my head. And that's why we use AI to refine our prompts. This is what the AI generated for me. And I was using a GPT here. And pass 1 is not too bad. Remember that we're not just generating a cool image here. We want to actually print this. So for iteration 2, my main point was do not include the strap, because I will add this in later with some string or whatever. I also asked for the AI to increase the stormtrooper styling. And the last point is making the black vents more obvious cutouts. So pass 2, after making those changes, it turned into this. I was actually quite pleased with my result. So now we can move on to the 3rd step, generating the model. Now you can use any AI program, but I like using Hunyuan because it's free. You might actually need to right click and translate to English to generate this view because it's a Chinese website. And I can't read Chinese unless you can. Click on 3D graphics up here and then multiple images. Now this allows us to upload 8 images to generate an accurate model. So that led me to uploading my images like this. And I thought that 4 images was more than enough. Then I selected the 1 million model face count and then clicked generate. On the first try, looks very similar to the AI generated images. Now, I was happy with this. It's important before you download that you check and make sure that there's no weird artifacts or anything like that. And then you can select which file type you want to export. Now, most of the time you'll probably be going STL, OBJ, or GL. GLB wasn't previously supported by Bambu Slicer, but now it is. So I tend to go for GLB a lot of the time, as it is essentially an STL with textured the file. Now, before we head to the slicing softwares, these are the steps that you must consider in the slicing software. So we want to scale it to size. This is something that I did forget. It's a little bit smaller meat, so don't forget to scale it. We want to make sure that it's printable. So a nice flat surface to print it on. Maybe the model requires some supports, and maybe the model requires some modifiers. So what I mean by that is, like, got the strap holes there. You may want to include another part or some magnets to your mask or something like that. So let's head to the slicer, drop it in. You can scale to millimeters. So with this new GLB import, this is a screen that only comes up when you upload a GLB. And you can see that it's recognized that there's 2 colors apparently. If you had a model with 4 colors, you can start to select your filament colors and things like that. Now for this model, I'm only going to print it in 1 color. So I'm just going to select red, and then it will just automatically merge them. Let's scale it down. This is the point where you would probably measure the size of your face and scale it. When you've imported your model, you can see straight away that there's no obvious way to print this. Now for me, the top here came to mind as the most flat section. And when you click on lay on face, this can give you some little clues. So it looks quite flat up here. Now that we've got the mask orientated, we want to really make sure that it's flat. So we can make a quick cut. See how if we didn't make this cut, the first layer would look like those white outlines there, and that's not ideal. So I'm going to make a cut right there. I'm going to remove the purple section and perform cut. Now it's guaranteed that we've got a nice flat surface to print on. Before I click slice, I'll show you some settings that I pretty much use on every print. These settings should be on by default. I use Arachne for essentially every print. I would usually change the infill, but for this one, I left it since it's quite a thin model and I didn't want it to be too weak. The next point is supports. You can see that there might be some sections that require support. So I've just ticked that and just left everything else on default settings. Then the final thing I've put on is a brim. The reason why I've put on a brim here is because there's a very thin surface area of the film. So I printed this last night and it needed to be done in time for the workshop today. I couldn't risk it failing. So I went for a large 10mm brim and I used some of the fill of adhesive spray just to make sure that it worked. Once I did that, I wanted to add the holes in, and that can be done quite simply by just adding a negative part. I did it like this. I set the size to 4mm and I just made this very long to ensure, maybe even longer. I'll make it the whole size of the bed and position the hole where we think looks good. Maybe right on the edge, further down or something like that. And we can just make sure that it's going through both sides of the mask like that. Now, the mask is all done. That is all the steps required. And you can hit print, and that is just really the power of 3D printing, that you can go from an idea to this thing that you're holding in your hands really quick. And I'll give one last bonus tip. Something that I noticed, you can use this measure feature up here, the ruler, and I realized that when I click slice that, it was really thin. So if we measure the thickness of this, it's like 1mm. So one way that you can thicken this up without starting the whole process again and asking ChatGPT to generate a thick mask and all that, you could do this little trick where you take your mask and you would copy it and paste it. Let's just name them just so you can see. There's mask 1 and mask 2. And you can see here that mask 2 is living exactly in the center of the other one. And if you just move the mask ever so slightly, you can see there that you can increase the thickness of your part without starting from scratch again. And we all know that modifying AI parts can be quite annoying. Now, it might not work if you don't have your parts merged. So you need to make sure that they're already merged here since they're in the same assembly tree. But if they're not, you can highlight both, right click, and there'll be a merge button. So there it is today, guys. From idea to 3D model in about 10 minutes. And this can apply to any idea you have, not just masks. So give it a crack, post it up in the Skool page, what you guys make. I'd love to see.